For me, the rest to feature decadence. I am the hunter, you are the prey. I'm the class warrior, you can count me.
Okay, this is going to be a short one with the theme of the number one sign that the America is in its final decline. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to tie it in a little bit with what's going on in the tech world. I went on a bit of a rant the other day saying that Microsoft and Facebook have to be destroyed, for example. There's a lot of talk right now about onshoring, right? And I'm not against that at all. You know, it is. And people have been complaining about this for so long that the manufacturing base in the United States was eroded because businessmen were sending the work to cheaper places in the world, and they were destroying a lot of the working class. And that's been going on, and it continued to go on, even while there were boom periods around high tech and stuff like that. And high tech now, as far as the mind share, is also being offshored. That's the irony here, is that there's all this talk about onshoring manufacturing and chips and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the offshoring of the work and the people that have access to all of the intellectual property continues unabated. But when we talk about onshoring, there's a few things I want to talk about. Now, this is not the sign that the United States is in its final decline, but it is something. And I find it interesting and a little bit sad about the way the United States operates. So, you know, the United States, they used to produce so many things, like back in the days when televisions were CRTs and stuff like that. There were all these American companies making televisions. They don't do it anymore. There were so many things that the United States made that were very high quality, and they were good unionized jobs making a lot of these things. All gone. All gone. And I'm going to show you something here. So most people know what this is. Do you know what this is? Should I put it here? That is a vacuum tube or a valve, as they say in the UK. RCA made some of the best valves of all time. They had a huge book. It was over 800 pages, going over the design of the tube that they were making. Right? So that's one. That in my guitar amp is a power tube. And then I have like the preamp tube here. A little bit smaller, right? This little guy here. Now, if you buy audio equipment, well, if you play electric guitar, you know all about this, right? But if you buy audio equipment, you'd sometimes see that they have tube audio equipment. And with audio, there is a special thing about tubes, because while they do have distortion at some point in time, they're very reactive. They also, like my 20-watt guitar amp will blow the roof off of this place, whereas my 100-watt solid-state amp in the living room will absolutely not, right? But the distortion they create is it's a very nice harmonic distortion. That's where rock and roll came from, by turning up the gain on the amp to the point where you got this distortion. It was this lovely new thing that was introduced into music. Now, back in the heyday of rock and roll, people were buying these wonderful tubes made by companies like RCA. Tubes are not manufactured in the United States anymore. There's not a single place making them. Because in reality, a lot of these companies moved on from manufacturing for the consumer to manufacturing for the military-industrial complex. It was far more profitable to sell stuff to the military that may or may not ever be used. And, you know, you look at the debt in the United States, there is a lot of money spent on defense. It used to be called the Department of War, I think, right? But it's defense. And that was the way things happened. So you do not have tubes made in the United States. Here's a challenge to Trump, who wants to onshore stuff. Get RCA to make some tubes, right? Every tube that is being purchased new is made in Russia. And there was even like this company, Electro-Harmonics, put out a statement saying there won't be any new tubes for a while because all of our stuff is just rebranded Russian tubes, right? They're still making the tubes. But it's a sad thing about how the United States kind of operates because they had such a great technology, and to shut it down completely was really too bad. But there's a lot of business sense in that. I mean, why isn't Kodak making Kodachrome anymore? Even though Kodachrome looks better than any digital SLR photograph, color-wise, of anything I've seen, they're still not making it. It's old technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm still not even sure about, there was black and white film went away for like black and white cinematography, right? I don't know what happened with that, But the point is, yeah, if you want to onshore, try making some tubes. They're not easy to make, and there's only a few places making them, and they're all in Russia. I do believe they're all in Russia. There might be one outside of Russia, but close. So good luck with that. But what I wanted to say about how the sign that the America's economy is in the final decline. Bowling, 10-pin bowling. We all know it. We all love it, right? You better love it. It's a great sport. The PBA have announced that they are allowing for certain competitions, and these competitions that they are listed as this, right? String setters for pins. Now, if you don't know what a string pin setter is, we've had them in Canada for 5-pin for a long time, but I don't know if they're used in professional. But generally, there's a string attached to the top of the pin, and all it has to do to reset is to pull them up into a chassis of some type, and then when the chassis comes down, it lets go of them when they're on the ground. Why? Well, it's a much less expensive system than the Brunswick, and I forget the other company. What is it, AMF or whatever? But if you take a look, the Brunswick pin setters are like the absolute top notch, right? But you need to pay people to manage these constantly because they're huge mechanical machines. And so you have to have someone working on that. And you have to get them repaired sometimes, I assume. You have to actually get someone that's certified by Brunswick or something. Like, who knows how deep it goes. But the point is this. Many of the bowling alleys are moving to this setup for a few reasons. The simplicity, but also for the cost savings, because the fear is that bowling alleys are going to shut down across America if they don't reduce their costs because they can't afford to stay in business. That's what they're saying, and I'm assuming it's somewhat true. And the reason it's true is that the cost of living is so high that having a person to come in and do work becomes more and more expensive. I've been saying this about the economy here in Toronto, which is now faltering at a very rapid pace. We have allowed housing prices to get out of control. We've allowed mortgages we've allowed people to get mortgages that there's no money left over after they pay the mortgage. We've allowed rents to increase. This is because government is AWOL. And government, I'll get to the solution on this in a minute, but government has been AWOL while our standard of living has been declining because the cost of living is increasing rapidly. So the point is this. Who is going to do the job of managing these pin setters, et cetera, with the pay that is going to be allotted for that, based on the fact that, Elaine gets so many dollars per hour, right? And it makes perfect sense that they're going to have to do some cost cutting, and they're going to have to, in some ways, destroy the game, in my opinion, by doing this. Now, as a casual bowler, what do I care, right? But the quality. Let's not say quality, but the expense of what we've been putting into bowling alleys for decades has been on the decline. I like the old wooden lanes, but we can't. No one would even think of putting a wooden lane in today, would they? And it's really too bad. I was bowling on a wooden lane recently, and I was like, wow, I have not heard that sound in a while. That was great. Just, I don't care if I get a gutter ball, just hearing that ball hitting the wood, right? Was great. And that's a large part of bowling is like the sound of the machine at the back and then the ball rolling back and the sound of that ball hitting the wood. Um, it's all a big part of it. But we've reduced costs, and now it's getting to the point where they're saying we can't even set the pins. So as I was saying, though, this is because we've been driving up the cost of living so much. I would love to work there. Geez, send me on a course, train me. I love bowling alleys. I'll work all day, and then I'll throw a few games, bowl a few games afterwards, and have a couple beers. I'll be happy. But we can't afford to do it. And I want to talk about the entire Western world because the entire Western world is messed up in this, and there's complaints coming out of Spain that people cannot afford to rent anymore. And the solution to this is governments that actually have some cojones, or whatever you want to say. And I've been saying this since the mid 2010s, that things are getting so far out of control that we have to start taxing people that own property the same way we tax people's incomes. Okay? Because we're taxing everyone's incomes, but the people that have property are not being taxed at the same rate, and they're driving up the prices of rent. It has to stop. If you wanted to destroy the Western world, this is how you would destroy it. Make it so that people can't afford to live and that salaries go so high that people can't even run a bowling alley anymore. That's how bad it is. And yet, when I say things like we have to tax property to put things back in line, people freak out. Why? Because they own a house or something. And their mortgage is very high because they paid way more for it than they should have. So they will resist this, and I expect people to resist this, and I expect a further and further and further decline of the Western economy, and it is coming at the United States. We're already seeing it. They are not, from what I can see with people's frustration, hiring high-tech people in the United States anymore. That's what it's come down to because it's so expensive. And if there's a cheaper way, and high tech is the perfect example of we can hire anyone around the world. We don't care, right? You're not competing. You are not competitive. Yes, you're well educated. Yes, you're intelligent. You're not competitive because the rent where you live is $3,000 a month. So that's what's destroying the Western world. We're allowing it to happen. And it's, if we want to change this, if we want to save this, we have to tax property the same way we tax someone's income. It is absolutely disgusting that people can hardly afford to pay their rent, and yet they are getting taxed to death. Right? So that's what's going on, and that is the solution. So I think I covered everything. But definitely, if we're getting to the point where you can't run a bowling alley anymore because the cost of living is too high, meaning that also paying people is too expensive, and on top of that, maybe people don't have money for bowling anymore, something's got to change. Also, start making tubes again. America, you made the best tubes in the world. Thanks for watching and have a good night.